what is it that customers really need and want? If we're going to be delivering an experience that nurtures and cultivates trusted relationships and and be able to support our customers most effectively, surely one of the fundamental questions there is, what is it that our customers really need and want? Is it what we're doing at the moment, or is it something different, or is it something extra? And how do we know with enough detail and precision that we can ensure that we can create those experiences? So this is a methodology and approach that I've certainly used and found extremely valuable, probably the most powerful way of getting deeper into this question of understanding what customers really want. And this relates a lot of the work that I do of trying to help organizations kind of see from a bigger perspective what's going on and how they orient themselves to where the value really lies. It's super important in a faster changing world, because if we aren't locked into where the value is and it's moving reasonably quickly for reasons of customer expectation and different technology, etc., then our organizations can fall behind what customers are looking for and alternatives. So I'm going to talk about what drives customers to use our services, look at how we think about value, and I'm going to talk specifically in this presentation about the jobs to be done framework. Some of you may have heard of this. I want to go a little bit deeper than perhaps many of you, even if you've heard about this, have truly understood this, and talk about how this might drive into a deeper analysis of how we think about improving the customer experience. So a lot of the talk in customer experience is around, of course, digital channels and what we can do there. And a fundamental question that I think a lot of organizations may find themselves in, especially if they've got a digital transformation program underway, is what are we doing? Are we digitizing our existing services, taking what we've got, all our legacy processes and forms, and turning those into sort of digital alternatives? There's certainly some value and money to be saved, etc., in that. Or are we rethinking what we're doing in a digital world? Because the digital world gives us new capabilities, new insights, new levels of intimacy with customers we didn't have before, new levels of data. So with all these new capabilities and insights that the digital world gives us, is it just doing what we did before in a digital way? Or can we use this opportunity to reimagine what we offer in a digital world that speaks much more deeply and closely to what customers want? Now, innovation, every organization needs to get better at this, because in a changing world, we need to innovate. But most organizations struggle with innovation, especially innovation that's coherent and consistent and continually works. Often people say through various research projects that the failure rate in innovation can be up to 90%, which means that the innovation that was developed failed to deliver the business case that was used to justify it. Now, there aren't many business processes that we would accept up to a 90% failure rate, but innovation is one of those. So why is it that innovation is so difficult? Are we just not good at making stuff? Why is it that we fail to hit the mark so often? And a lot of the work that's been done to look at why does innovation rates fail, it shows that the primary reason is not that we're not good at making stuff, but we never understood the problem we were trying to solve, or we never really had a deeper enough understanding of the needs. So we built the wrong thing. We may have built the wrong thing perfectly, but if it doesn't address the specific needs of the people we're trying to serve, then the innovation is likely to fail, or at least perform less. Another reason, of course, is that we tend to innovate through a very narrow lens of what we think customers want, and we don't think about the total experience that we need to wrap around whatever product or service that we're designing or innovating. It's not just what we offer, it's how we offer it. And have we thought about all of those things in the design of the experience that we're seeking to build? So understanding what is it those pesky customers, patients, citizens need or want is a super, super important insight that will help orient our innovation efforts towards understanding more clearly how we can innovate more accurately to what customers want. So this drills us down. If we look at that a little bit closer, it begs the question of, what do we mean by a customer need? And one of the interesting things is, if you go to marketing and ask them what a customer need is, if you go to sales, ask them what a customer need is, if you go to product and ask them what a customer need is, everyone will come up with a different definition. And one of the interesting things that arises out there is that if we haven't got a common understanding of what we even mean by a customer need, then what we're going to find is the inputs that we get, whether it's market research or sales insights or insights from CRM or any other part of the organization, we're going to have mixed signals that confuses the people who are responsible for design and innovation as to what exactly are we trying to deliver? What is the need that we're trying to address? Now, let's get into this notion of jobs to be done and how we think about products or services or experience innovations. And this is a really profound insight that came from a famous marketer, Theodore Levitt, back in 1962. And this is about people don't actually want products or services. They don't wake up in the morning, I want the product or service. People use products or services because they help the customer get something done. And this quote here sort of sums that up. People don't want a quarter-inch drill. They actually want a quarter-inch hole. The drill is simply a means to an end. The product or the service is a means to an end that the customer has. So what is the end that they want? This gets us closer to what the needs are that we're trying to fill. So another famous quote that many of you may have heard that fits into this kind of frame of thinking is this quote from Henry Ford. If I asked customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So one of the things that feels intuitive is, well, what do you mean, Andy? What do customers need? Just ask them what they need. And this quote really points to a fundamental sort of question or questioning of that form of market research. Because when you ask customers what they want, what you're actually asking them is two questions at the same time. What is the unmet need they have, or what in what we'll be talking about? What is the job they're trying to get done? And what do they think the solution is to their own problem? Now, customers are very good at being able to explain the problem they've got. What they're not so good at is trying to define the solution to their own problem. So when you ask customers what do they want, what you find that you're asking them is to come up with their own ideas of the solutions to their own problems. Now, customers often, or most customers, will not be aware of the full possibilities of the technology, the full capabilities of your organization, the completely new ways in which their problems could be solved by more innovative thinking. The role of the organization is to do the innovation. The input that's most valuable from the customers is what's the problem they're trying to solve, or what's the job they're trying to get done. Because if we can understand that in greater detail, we can do the innovation to solve that better than they could ever imagine, better than they could ever articulate if we try to ask them to come up with the solutions to their own problems. So Clayton Christensen, one of the most famous professors of innovation, said customers buy or use a product or use a service to help them get a job done. So the focus of market research is not asking customers what they want, but to fully understand the job they're trying to get done. And if we can understand the job they're trying to get done, it will reveal the opportunities to improve the existing offer, because what we can see is what we're offering at the moment only partially helps them get a job done, or helps them get a job done to a level, but we could do more. Or it will point that there's a whole bigger area of value. There's a bigger job they're trying to get done to which our product or service only speaks to a part of that. And this, therefore, is a value opportunity, sort of value left on the table that we're not speaking to, that could be both more valuable if we could solve it for customers, and of course, if we could solve it as an organization, opens up the possibility for a greater opportunity for our organization, a deeper bond with the customer, and a deeper value relationship that will help our organization into the future. So here's some just examples of ways in which that can be brought to life. So we can think about a digital fintech, thinking about arranging or delivering a suite of banking services to compete with an existing regular bank. And they may think of current account, financial payments, etc., etc. But if they were to move into something like mortgages, if we think about mortgages, we think that as a mortgage product, and we could be looking at who might we sell mortgage services to. But when we look more closely at something like a mortgage, it's really quite a commoditized product. It's usually customers will choose based on the lowest interest rate, with some terms around that may fit their circumstances. It's quite commoditized as a market. And of course, there are lots of intermediaries that come along and compare the market and steer customers to the cheapest product. So it's very difficult to establish sustainable value in a mortgage product other than if you're the cheapest. But if you look at what is the job the customer's trying to get done when they think about a mortgage product, what is revealed is that not that customers wake up in the morning and go, I want a mortgage. They use a mortgage because they've got a bigger job of moving house due to a change in circumstance. And the job of moving a house is much bigger than the mortgage. Mortgage is important, but it's only part of a bigger job, where can I afford to live, what properties meet my needs, what facilities are available at the location, how much it costs to live there. If I found somewhere, what improvements do I want to make to fit it to my needs and that of my family? How do I sell my property? How do I manage all the paper? There's a lot of really important other things that need to be done in the job of moving house. Now that's interesting because that shows that around the buying of the mortgage or securing a mortgage, there's a whole suite of other things that are part of this job of moving home. And it raises the question, is this an opportunity to use jobs to be done thinking to rethink what it is that we offer or what new experience we may create that better fits the need of customers? So this is just an example to illustrate the power of jobs to be done, which can be thought about in the locality of your own particular market. So the job of moving house, the first, if you like, important piece is, how do we know what the needs of that job of moving house are? Yes, we can get some secondary market data and get some of that. But the most important time is to go and sit with customers and understand how they see that job. Who does it? What contexts it happen? What attitudes do people have? And what are the sequence of steps that people go through to think about that? And in this example, there may be a hierarchy of job. The job of moving house will include where to live, what property to select, what facilities do I need, especially if I've got kids, etc. What needs to be done to the property they may have found? How my living expenses going to change, and how do I manage that? How do I actually relocate? So there are a number of sub jobs in that meta job. So this represents a whole new area of value discovery. What are all the things we could do possibly to support that customer? What are these jobs that they need to do? Which ones are really key and critical? Especially if we're thinking about offering a mortgage, are there opportunities to offer a service that gets some of these other jobs done, that is both valuable to the customer and also ties my mortgage offer to something bigger and more valuable that will provide a more compelling package? So spending time with customers, determining what jobs are important to them, and then map out each of these jobs and the unmet needs or the needs on each of these jobs. Now, I've done projects like this and it can be incredibly insightful. We often get 50 to 150 needs on each job. So we get down to a level of granularity that really reveal the detail of what is required to undertake or deliver a job. And what jobs to be done does is give us quality precision inputs into our design thinking or innovation process. So usually if you've got a double diamond approach to thinking about innovation, it usually starts with understanding the customer, exploring that space and refining that down to what it is that we're going to do. So jobs to be done helps you to really think about what are the jobs that customers need to be done? What are the needs on those jobs, and which ones are absolutely critical for the customer and represent the key opportunity for us? Then the idea generation becomes how, given those precision inputs, we've now got the opportunity to ideate or create solutions to speak specifically to those detailed needs, which then allows us to develop a solution, to prototype it and test. So jobs to be done help us to think about, if you look at right at the top there, where are we going to play in this market? Does this give us a lens to understand where the value is in this market area that we may be able to speak to? And the ideation and design of the product or service experience gives us the formula for how to win. So tying these two together helps reduce the likelihood that our innovation fails to hit the mark. This locks it in much more closely, deeply, and more specifically to where these new value opportunities. So ethnographic research, one-on-one interviews, combined with other forms of insights, help us to distill down on what these key jobs and outcomes are, what the desired outcomes are, and to find out where the biggest value creation opportunities. We can then explore the range of ideas to solve that, distill the ideas into solutions and co-develop those with customers into prototype and test, and get those testing down and fine-tuned so that when we come to the launch, we've minimized the likelihood that we're going to miss the mark. So a little bit deeper into jobs. So each job will have a slightly different structure, but there is a kind of meta pattern that has appeared from hundreds and hundreds of studies on jobs. And usually there is this kind of formula that appears. So people usually, when they got a job, they usually try to define what it is that they're going to do. They plan something, they select, and they determine how they're going to do something. They usually want to locate information or resources to begin the job. They usually prepare and set up something. They confirm that this actually meets what they need. They carry out the job, and they usually monitor what they're doing to make sure that the job is done well. They may need to modify things and then conclude. So there is a kind of meta structure to jobs. So this is often used in a job study to just kind of think about how the job is broken down into its various steps. This can be used as a starter for 10, and obviously that's shaped to do this. So I've done projects on this, looking at the unmet needs in financial services. I've looked at this through the unmet needs of diabetics and what they need from a more holistic way of helping them manage their condition, not just their insulin and their glucose, but what are the other psychological and practical challenges of living with a disease. I've done similar ones for mental health. I've also done this in travel. It's been a very powerful tool for getting much deeper into specific jobs and their unmet needs. And the needs that you would usually surface through interviews and ethnographic research allows you to come up with a way of thinking about needs in a particular syntax. Now, this may seem a little bit too detailed for some, but it actually is really, really appreciated by design, especially if you're going to take this into as part of a digital solution, because it gives a much more specific set of inputs, even better than user stories, which any of you involved in design of digital services will be familiar with. So the desired outcome would indicate a direction of improvement. Do we want to do more of something or less of something than we've normally done? Less of what? So what is the direction? What is the thing that people are trying to change? And by putting a contextual clarifier, something that describes that as an example, helps the designer to understand what it is that these desired outcomes. So one example of that would be minimize the time it takes to obtain support when experiencing a problem. So we're trying to minimize the direction. What is it that we're trying to minimize? The time it takes to obtain support when experiencing a problem. So that's the context, if you like. E.g., my phone stops working. If it was we're thinking about an experience for a telco. As mentioned, when doing these kind of work, we can get 50 to 150, sometimes 200 of these desired outcomes, which are very precise inputs to thinking about what is the design of our experience. So it could be minimize the time, it could be minimize the effort, improve the quality, reduce the variability. These are typically things that people want from or struggling with when they're undertaking jobs with the existing ways of doing it, or the existing solution sets they may be trying to cobble together to try and get something done. So going down a little bit more detail, you have the core job. When you do this research, you'll find that there are probably related jobs. This can be seen to the left, there are other things that are related to that. There may be some emotional jobs. How do I want to feel? And social jobs, how do I want to be seen? So some products and services are super important because you're not only using it for functional reasons, but you're actually potentially using an iPhone because you want to be seen to be an iPhone user. And you certainly want to, if you buy a Ferrari and have that on your drive, using that as a social job to be seen as someone who owns a Ferrari. So some jobs have these emotional and social jobs associated with it. But then this job map, as we've just been through, has a bunch of steps and a bunch of desired outcomes, which give us a very sophisticated and precise set of inputs. So what we tend to see is that if we look at consumption jobs, or as they said, like these are jobs to do with sort of buying and setting up products. So these are the, if you like, the customer journey jobs that associated with the different stages of the journey. We can think about these as providing very precise sets of inputs into parts of the customer journey. So the job around support, or the jobs around buying and setting up, using jobs to be done, we can get very precise inputs into thinking about what do customers need or want from these parts of a journey, which can significantly improve the quality and accuracy of some of these. So customer value, which is what jobs to be done helps us to think about, can be super important from a strategy level as well. Because if we know what customer jobs are super important and which ones that we as an organization want to speak to, we've now got a language to think about what is it that customers need and want. So we can move from the traditional way of pushing product to customers to understanding what is the job or jobs that we're trying to help customers done, so that all parts of our organization can see what it is that we're here for. What's our purpose? What are we trying to do for the world? We're trying to help customers get these jobs done. And our products and services and our experience is simply the way that we're doing it today. But if we understand the job they're trying to get done, we can see how new technology, new ways of working can increasingly help us to get that job done better. So it gives the organization a bigger frame to think about how are we going to innovate? How do we get better collectively in servicing those jobs? So it takes a job-based view of the world rather than just a product-based view of the world. The product is simply today's best attempt to solve and deliver a solution to that job. Taking the job-based approach means that we can keep quite consistent the job that we're trying to get done, but use new technologies and approaches to do that better. So really mapping out and understanding that job to be done is super important. So what's the customer trying to get done? What are the designed outcomes? How does that give us an insight to what customers truly value? Where are the gaps between what the customers ideally want and what we're currently doing? Where are the new opportunities to offer value? Super important strategically. It helps us to think about how do we design a customer experience that speaks directly to what customers value. It helps us to bring in ecosystem partners and other partners that we may not have considered before that help give us an extra set of capabilities to help that job done. Because it may be that we don't have all the pieces. Maybe we have partners that can help us build a solution that gets that job done better than anyone else in our industry. And it also helps us in our journey from kind of products to services to relationships. If we're going to build a relationship, we want to build a relationship around what customers truly value, and jobs to be done will show us what that is. It helps us to understand in more detail what personalization actually means for a customer, if it personalizes how that job is done. And as we move more into a data-based world with IoT and more digital services that are giving us more data, how do we make sure that that data and those services are aligned with jobs, the job the customer's trying to get done? And finally, if we're going to automate and apply AI to some of the ways in which these services get enhanced and tuned in the future, let's make sure that we're automating and tuning those to ever better get the job done, rather than tuning it through AI just for some internal efficiency gains. Let's use AI to help us in service of getting customer jobs done better. So if we don't understand the job, we can't tune the AI to do that. So again, as we move forward into a more automated AI world, having a deep understanding of customer jobs to be done will help us to put to work our AI in ways that truly deliver value for customers and therefore differentiate us in the markets that we care about. So one could argue, although Steve Jobs never used this language of customer jobs to be done, that he was thinking in exactly the same way. And one of the famous quotes there is, you've got to start with the customer experience and work back to the technology, not the other way around. And I would argue that what Steve Jobs is saying there is, let's start by understanding the customer's job to be done, or jobs to be done, and what those needs are. Let's make sure we understand that and then work towards the technology that provides the solution to that. And of course, Apple continued to be very successful in taking that kind of approach. So what have we learned? Most service innovation fails to reach its full potential, up to 90%. Customers use our products and services to help them get a job done. That's an important conceptual insight that I hope I've landed with you. And that the customer journey consists of support jobs, as well as the key job of the product. There's also support jobs. How do we install it? How do we buy it? How do we set it up? How do we use it? How do we get support? How do we bill? How do we upgrade? These are all extra jobs that Jobs to be Done Lens can help us to understand in more detail. Customer needs are the desired outcomes that customers seek to help them get each step of the job done. So this is a really interesting and I think quite a powerful way of zooming in to really define what a customer need is. And as we've seen, if we can see the direction, what it is we want to change, and in an example, we get to see not a need in an airy-fairy language, but something very specific that our design teams can actually get to work with to create experiences that speak directly to. And that mapping out the job and researching desired outcomes provides the most precise way of getting inputs to create winning customer experiences. So hopefully I've given you a flavor of why Jobs to be Done thinking is important, a little bit of an insight when we go deeper as to how that methodology works and why precision-based inputs gives us a much better chance of being successful in speaking directly to what customers need and want and help us to succeed. So there you are. I wasn't expecting to give you that presentation.